You're watching the Money Down presented by BetPrep. I'm Tamara Brown. There's Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, ready to get you all ready for the betting angle of the Week 6 college football games. Guys, let's get this party started. This college betting party started with Georgia and Auburn. Joe, you weren't here last week, so let's start with you.
Oh, it's good to be back, and I still made picks. I did quite well. I'm looking to put another good week together here. As far as this Georgia-Auburn game, I'm in on the first half under of 23.5. And the reason why is the quarterback dynamics in this football game. They're kind of weird. We're not expecting JT Daniels for Georgia, which means Stetson Bennett again. Bo Nix has been up and down all season long. He's been benched at times this year, and I don't trust him against a defense like Georgia. To me, all the pressure is on Auburn in this game, and I don't like that as a recipe for points. I don't need Bo Nix going out there and trying to do more than he's capable of doing against a Georgia defense that is absolutely suffocating. Consecutive shutouts. They're allowing 4.6 points per game. The best thing about Auburn is their rushing attack on offense, and good luck getting that going against Jordan Davis and company for this Georgia defense. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown all year long. So the spread of 15 was more than I was comfortable working with, but I like that under 23.5 in the first half of this football game.
All right, Kyle, Joe is coming in hot with the under. Where do you stand for this Georgia-Auburn game, this top 25 matchup?
Well, who knew that the secret to a very successful week of betting picks was just making picks and not showing up for the show? So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my notice for vacation next Saturday and see how it goes, because I was a disaster last week, missed both my 2-unit bets after a good week the week prior. But I agree with Joe. This line's kind of in an uncomfortable spot. It's at plus 15. Well, I have no shame. So I'm going to buy the line down. I agree with Joe about the quarterback dynamics being uncomfortable. I'm buying this thing down to Georgia minus 13.5. I understand that's going to come at a compromised return on investment, but I do think Georgia, with their motivations and their aspirations to be the number one team in the country and to win a national championship this year, Joe made a great point. It's strength on strength. The Auburn rushing attack is 13th in line yards in the country at this point in time, and they're going against a Georgia defense that has allowed just one 20-yard rush all season long. Bo Nix has the athleticism to extend and create plays, but this Georgia defense, whether it's Adam Anderson or Nakobe Dean or Jordan Davis on the interior, like, they've got dogs everywhere. Nolan Smith. This is the second best rated pass rush unit in the country. Those things add up to me. I do think Georgia can win this game comfortably, under control. But if you're telling me it's 15, it's a little weird for me, so I'm going to buy it down. I'm taking Georgia minus 13.5. That way I can get that 2-touchdown buffer.
Now, Kyle, we're taking a trip out to the Big 12 now with Oklahoma and Texas. Where are you leaning with this matchup?
Yeah, Red River rivalry. You never know what to expect. And here's the thing. I so desperately want to believe that Texas is legitimately back, right? And it's a 3.5-point line, which is tempting. I want to believe they're back. I want to believe that my personal favorite right now for the Heisman, Bijan Robinson, continues his tear. He runs roughshod on Oklahoma, and I think that can happen. And I think Texas can push around Oklahoma on defense. They got a lot of team speed on Oklahoma, but they don't have a lot of size. But Spencer Rattler is on my S list, and we're going to keep it PG here, which means as soon as I bet against him, he's going to come back and bite me. They've burned me twice early in the year. So I'm going to go with another thing that I know for certain is going to happen in this football game when the teams are being coached by Lincoln Riley and Steve Sarkisian. You're going to get points. And because of that, I am taking the over. Rivalry games are unpredictable. This much we know. But what we do know is Lincoln Riley teams and Steve Sarkisian teams, they're going to score points. So therefore, give me the over. And I do like Texas plus 3.5 a lot. But I don't want to play with the karma factor here. So I'm just taking the over.
All right, Joe, Kyle is really nervous about karma because Oklahoma has burned him twice. He's big on the points, and we know that the Big 12 scores a lot of points, but where are you standing with this matchup?
I'm coming off of a hot week, and so I'm trying to dig myself out of a very big early season hole. So I'm going in on Texas, but I'm taking the money line here. The Texas offense is extremely hot. They're averaging 53 points per game over its last 3 games, running the football extremely well with Bijan Robinson. And Casey Thompson's starting to show some life at quarterback. Now, I'm a little bit nervous about this Oklahoma pass rush and how they can heat him up, but we'll put that aside here because what makes me more nervous is Spencer Rattler. I don't trust him to be consistent, and I think that's going to be what puts Texas on top in this football game. The Sooners have been escaping games more than they are playing like a true playoff contender in my mind. It catches up with them today. Texas wins outright.
Wow. See, I'm used to Kyle going money line. He went money line a lot, I feel like, last week. But Joe's back. He's going with the Kyle take here with money line. But now let's go to LSU, Kentucky. Hard to believe Kentucky's 5-0. I'm a little bit baffled by that. But Joe, where are you standing with this game where LSU's coming off their first home loss to Auburn since 1999, and Kentucky's on a 5-0 win streak?
Yeah, they're a hot football team. Took care of the Florida Gators last week. I like Kentucky to win and cover in this football game. LSU has really struggled to run the football this year. They're only averaging 70 yards per game on the ground, and I think that's going to be a problem in this football game because the Wildcats are at home, and they have an outstanding rushing attack led by Chris Rodriguez. Kentucky's defense is extremely stout, and I don't trust this LSU quarterback, Max Dyson, to dice it up in the passing game. And that's really where LSU's production has come this year. It's through the air, and I think that Kentucky can bottle up this passing attack a little bit. The Wildcats are limiting opponents this year to 180 passing yards per game, and so the Wildcats are at home. They have a lot of confidence, like you mentioned, 5-0, big win over Florida. I think it keeps going. 2.5 is not a whole lot of points for them to have to cover. I think they get it done at home this week.
Kyle, are you on the same page as us? Do you think that the ball is going to keep on rolling for Kentucky and they're going to go on to 6-0 this week?
Well, the thing I'm worried about is an emotional letdown, right? They just beat Florida at home. It was a massive win for them, kind of that classic letdown scenario, which we didn't get too much of a taste of last year with an abbreviated season in general, and then a little bit less of the crowd and live audience dynamics. I'm taking the under on 50.5 in this football game. Joe makes a lot of great points about the dynamics of both of these two teams. Here's what you need to know for my thought process on under 50.5 points in this contest. Kentucky is 110th in the country in plays per minute. They're 82nd in the country in big play rate. They're 10th in the country on line yards offensively, 14th in the country in big play rate defensively, and 23rd in finishing drives defensively. That means they buckle down in the red zone. They play slow. They're going to be able to run the football with success. And then you take that and you foil that against LSU, who's 125th in the country in offensive line yards, 84th in the country in big play rate, and 56th in the country on plays per minute. Neither team plays fast. Kentucky at home should be able to run the football. They should be able to buckle down if LSU gets into the red zone. This is a letdown spot for me, so I'm taking all of these favors into play, and I'm saying I like all the dynamics for a low-scoring football game instead.
What are you dialing up for the next top 25 matchup in the SEC with Arkansas and Ole Miss? Which one of these teams is going to bounce back from last week's losses? I'm going to start with you, Kyle.
Yeah, this is not quite 79.5 or whatever that Bama Ole Miss line was the week prior, but this is still a big number. So I'm, again, going to hit the under here. A couple consecutive unders for me at 66.5 points. Arkansas is not a tempo team. Both of these defenses or both of these offenses run the ball at a high clip. You know, Ole Miss came into the Alabama game. They were averaging almost 300 yards on the ground. Ole Miss plays fast. Arkansas does not. I do think Arkansas has the size to control the line of scrimmage a little bit. And because both of these teams do have the ability to run the football with success, I like that running clock dynamic to kind of come in play late here. I think we squeak in just under 66.5. It's going to be close, but I have no idea which coach is going to be able to get their team to bounce back from the butt kicking they took last week from Georgia and Alabama, respectively. So I'm going to stay away from picking a line here and instead just trying to read the dynamics of, yes, Ole Miss makes a lot of explosive plays. Arkansas is pretty good at limiting explosive plays. Both teams run the ball, running clock. Let's get the under in.
Joe, Kyle's going with back-to-back unders here. When you look at Arkansas and Ole Miss, what do you have dialed up?
It's a tough game to gauge, and like we've already established here, I'm sure these teams are happy to see each other and not having to play Alabama and Georgia like these teams did last week. And so a new challenge for them. I think they're both wanting to kind of bury last week and move on. So what I like in this game is Arkansas plus 3.5 for the first half spread. And I really like the way Barry Odom, the defensive coordinator for Arkansas, has this defense playing. And I'm not sure he could keep Ole Miss bottled up all game long, but if the Rebels do run away with this football game, I expect that to be in the second half after that feeling out process, is already established. So I think Arkansas keeps this game close early. That's why I like them plus 3.5 in the first half. And then, like I said, if there's going to be somebody separating from the pack, I think it happens late in the game. And so I like getting that 3.5 for Arkansas in the first half behind a good Barry Odom coach defense.
Joe, we're heading up to the Big Ten now with Michigan and Nebraska. Michigan obviously coming off that big statement win against Wisconsin. What light can you shed on this matchup?
I like Michigan -3 in this football game. They have a really nice script. They run the football extremely well. Cade McNamara, their quarterback, is a good game manager, and they play good defense over there in Michigan, and they're averaging a ton of rushing yards, 255 rushing yards per game, and that's really bad news for a Nebraska defense that has struggled to defend the run this year. Michigan went on the road last week and took care of Wisconsin. They destroyed the Badgers, so I don't think they're going to have any issues doing it again, going on the road to Nebraska and handling their business. Michigan's defense is very aggressive, and I think that is going to give Adrian Martinez, the Nebraska quarterback, fits. Michigan goes into Nebraska, wins this game, and covers.
Kyle, he believes that Michigan's going to go again on the road again and take care of business. Do you believe that is going to happen again this week against Nebraska?
So here's the good news. I'm in on Big Blue.
Okay.
But this feels like a trap line, which has me a little skittish. I'm taking Michigan on the money line. First and foremost, like Scott Frost, thanks for showing up, man. Like, this team finally is starting to look like the program that they were expecting to get when they brought Scott Frost home to Lincoln after his time at UCF. They demolished Northwestern last week, 56-7. Might have been the most impressive all-around team win in the Scott Frost era in Nebraska, but they're still at a talent deficiency against Michigan. And I respect the fact that this game is in Lincoln, but I do think they're getting juiced up a little bit because of that 49-point win last week. The Wolverines are a souped-up version of the Michigan State team that beat Nebraska in overtime 2 weeks back with the run game, the defensive prowess, the physicality up front. And if Adrian Martinez, who leads this team in rushing, is going to have success, they're going to be trying to option and get him the ball in zone read. And that could potentially lead to some instances of trying to option off of Aiden Hutchinson, to which I would say good luck. Aiden Hutchinson's playing at top 10 overall pick status. If he's on the edge, if you're trying to option off of him, I think he's going to be up to the task. I don't trust Michigan to not make this a heart attack game, though. So I'm just taking the money line. I don't want to leave any room for error with the points. Joe, you can take those 2.5 points. I don't want them. I just want Michigan at the end of the day to get it done.
Speaking of heart attack games, this is a heart attack game for me coming up with Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. Joe, you're an ACC guy. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, it's an even line, a kind of a pick'em game. It's difficult to just predict the winner because I can find the script for either team. So what I feel most comfortable about in this football game is the first half under of 23. Now, first of all, the Hokies are only averaging 23.5 points per game this season, and that's aided by a 35-point outing against Middle Tennessee State. The Hokies, they stumbled to 21 points against an FCS team in Richmond last time they took the field. Now, Notre Dame's defense has not played well this year, but I think that they have enough talent for them to start to improve, and they have plenty of difference makers on that defense. I do not trust this Notre Dame quarterback situation whatsoever. They cannot pass block up front. And so if points are going to come in this game, I think it's in the second half, not in the first half. I like this under 23.5 for the first half of this football game.
There's been a consistent theme here with not trusting quarterbacks. Kyle, when you look at Notre Dame at Virginia Tech, what do you make of this game?
Yeah, I also don't trust the quarterback situation for they've got a lot of questions, right? They're coming off a home loss to Cincinnati in which they were never really in it. Can you get the offensive line right? Doesn't look like that's going well. They've been managing Michael Mayer, the stud sophomore tight end there, who's their best offensive weapon aside of Kyron Williams, who can't get it going because Notre Dame is 126 in the country in offensive line yards. So you're kind of dancing around an injury issue for Michael Mayer, who is the starting quarterback. Oh, by the way, you also got to go into Blacksburg and play. And Joe and I have both been there for games. It gets real rowdy there. So Tech ranks better on both sides of the ball in the trenches, but not by much. It's kind of a bad trenches versus trenches thing. I do like Virginia Tech quarterback Braxton Burmeister to be an X factor here. I'm taking Virginia Tech at home in the pick'em to win this football game outright.
All right, as we have an SEC West showdown with Alabama and Texas A&M. Kyle, when you look at this game, where are you leaning? Money line, over, under?
So I'm going to do what is apparently the Joe Marino special this week, and I'm going to take the first half points for Alabama. I believe it's at 12.5 at this point in time. Last night it was at 11. I got it locked in last night at 11 for myself. But even with the movement, it's 2 touchdowns. Here's the deal. Bama rolled Ole Miss in the first half last week and then gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter or in the second half. And I really don't know what's going on with this A&M offense. Their quarterback situation's a hot mess as well. The only stat that spoke to me about this game is Alabama outscoring their opponents in the first half of football games thus far this season by 150-16 margin. Yes, I'm going to take Bama, less than 2 touchdowns in the first half, to come out gangbusters and take care of business and then not have to worry about that big line, that big 18 at the end of the game.
Joe, Kyle went with the Joe Marino special on that pick, but where do you stand with that? Are you going to go with your special or are you going to go with over, under? Where do you stand for this game?
Well, I can certainly feel what Kyle was saying there with big Alabama spreads because I've been burned by them in the past where they cover for the first half, the first 3 quarters of the game, and then they give up some touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and you're like, oh, my God, they blew the cover. So I'm staying away from that 18-point spread. What I do like here is Alabama's team over of 34.5. I mean, the Tide is averaging 45.6 points per game this season. They're averaging 39 against Power 5 foes, which includes Miami, Florida, Ole Miss. And so why is Texas A&M going to be any different? I know that this is the best defense that Alabama has faced all year. I understand that it's on the road, but Bryce Young, the Alabama quarterback, is starting to hit his stride. Alabama is just simply too explosive for Texas A&M, who gave up 408 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to Will Rogers last week, and that was his best outing of the season. I just have a hard time finding the path for the Aggies to keep an explosive Alabama offense 10 points below their team average on the season. So give me that over on the Alabama team over of 3-34, actually.
Joe, what about the path of BYU remaining undefeated? Is that possible with who they're facing this week in Boise State?
Yeah, I like BYU to win this game and cover. I mean, BYU has won every game this season by at least 7 points, so I don't understand why Boise State is going to be any different. This is strength on weakness. BYU is gaining 180 rushing yards per game. Boise State's giving up 194 rushing yards per game. The Broncos are 107th in the nation in run defense, and this Cougars offensive line and this rushing attack is just going to be too much for Boise State. And I think this Broncos team, they wear down as the team goes on. Boise State has several key defenders that are banged up. And so I just don't think this is going to be the week that Boise State plays above what we've seen this year. And for some reason, BYU would play below what we've seen. Give me BYU to handle this touchdown spread.
Kyle, where do you stand with BYU and Boise State?
Our Cougs here on the show. I'm taking BYU -6 as well. Joe stole some of my stats here about how bad of a rushing offense Boise State is and whatnot. You know, they're a well scored passing offense as far as success passing the football, but their pass protection ranks 105th in the country. And they don't run the football. They don't have a lot of balance. This could be a one-dimensional offensive attack for Boise State. That concern does not exist for BYU, who is a top 6 ranked team in pass protection. They're 29th in rushing success rate. This offensive line is tremendous. Boise's defense, they're 113th in finishing drives, 105th in pass rush, and 97th in defensive line yards allowed. Joe mentioned strength on weakness. There it is right there for you. BYU put 51 points on this team last year in Boise, Idaho. This BYU team has logged 3 wins over Pac-12 competition. Arizona, okay. Utah, okay. And Arizona State, okay. Like, I really like the resume that this BYU team has built to this point in time. And I don't see why the worst iteration of Boise State that we have seen in quite some time is going to cover 6 points and lose by less than a touchdown when the line right there on the game trends tells you BYU, a lot of success, 5-1 against the spread against Boise State in their last 6 games.
Kyle, speaking of good resumes, we've got a top 5 matchup, a Big Ten showdown with Penn State and Iowa closing out our first segment of today's show. What light can you shed on this game of 2 undefeated teams?
This is really tough. There's 15 to 20 mile per hour winds called for at Kinnick, which is a tough task for a Penn State offense that can't consistently run the football, right? Iowa Hawkeyes the ball better than anyone in the country with some of their turnover that they have produced. They're leading the country in turnovers forced, and that you could make the argument that's not necessarily a replicatable and sustainable rate. 68 points off turnovers this season. At the same time, Penn State's also gotten good bounces of the ball against closely contested games between Wisconsin and Auburn earlier this year. Are they a team of destiny, or is law of averages going to come into play and bounce the ball in against their favor? So Iowa at home, low scoring contest. I like the under, but give me Iowa on the money line to win this game outright. Again, you can take the 2.5 points. I don't need them. I just want to get Iowa to cover this game because I could see 17-16 absolutely being a pathway to a final score here in this game, although the kicking game is going to be compromised as well. So Tyler Goodson, Sam Laporta, opportunistic defense at home. This thing's going to be close, but give me Iowa.
Joe?
Yeah, I think we're all expecting a defensive struggle in this football game. And so I can understand why Kyle would be nervous about that narrow spread for Iowa to cover. But I do like Iowa's defense better. I do like that they're at home, and I am comfortable with laying the 1.5 points. So I like Iowa minus 1.5. I mean, they're leading the nation in turnover margin at plus 12. And I think the Hawkeyes not only being tough to move the ball on, but they can take away the football is the difference in this game, as I expect both offenses to stumble. So I think that Iowa can take care of this spread and, continue this trend of Penn State struggles against top 5 teams.
All right, we've heard from Kyle and Joe on this opening slate of games. When we get back from the break, we will have the BetPrep breakdown with Patrick Everson from props.com to talk about another handful of games.
Hey everyone, Brentley Wiseman here over at the Draft Network. I want to take you through my second edition of the 2022 NFL Mock Draft. Let's go. everyone. Thank you for checking out my second edition of my 2022 NFL mock draft. Please make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and also leave a comment in the comment section. Also, be sure to head over to thedraftnetwork.com where we have all of your college football and NFL draft needs.
Hey, college football fans, Jordan Reed here once again for another episode of Reading Between the Lines, where I go through some of the things that caught my eye the most throughout the college football's weekend. And I have to start in the SEC with Alabama and Georgia. And the two matchups that everybody had circled on their calendar for this weekend was Georgia and Arkansas, as well as Alabama and Ole Miss. And those two games ended up being a no contest for both of them. What I mean by no contest is that Alabama and Georgia both passed the test with flying colors. Georgia gets the big victory over Arkansas, 37-0. They get the shutout, and Alabama gets the big win over Ole Miss, 42-21. But my biggest takeaway from both of these games is that Alabama and Georgia are the clear two best teams in college football. Both of them are just on a different level, a different stratosphere from everybody else right now. And they are on a collision course in this SEC to face off in the SEC championship game. And I'm really hoping that we see both of them play each other in a national championship, just because they are clearly the two best teams in the country. But I want to transition now to the ACC and Kenny Pickett. This is a quarterback that is playing extremely well right now, and it just doesn't seem like anybody's paying attention for whatever reason. Pickett has 14 touchdowns over the last 3-game stretch right now, which was a record that was previously set by Dan Marino. Dan Marino had 13 back in 1981. Kenny Pickett has passed for 14 touchdowns over their past 3 games. He's second in the country right now in passing touchdowns with 19, and he's also 4th in total offense and passing yards. So this is a player that really has started to hit his stride, and he came back for his senior season, his 6th year, I should say. And everybody was questioning what was the reasoning that he came back, but he's really unlocked the next stage of his development. But it just seems like there isn't anybody paying attention to him. So Kenny Pickett is a player that I have a gold star beside right now. I can't wait to go down to the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine game, whichever one that he does end up playing in, to watch him play, just to see him throw the ball in person and just to see how much better he has gotten. And he's clearly unlocked the next stage of his development. So Kenny Pickett, more eyes need to be on him, especially with how underwhelming this quarterback class has been overall. But if we're talking about a quarterback that could go anywhere from the 4th, 5th, or even the 6th round, somewhere in that range, he may even go earlier. He's one player that I definitely could see some team falling in love with somewhere on day 2 or day 3. Staying on the quarterback train, and even I really like what has happened with this Cincinnati program, quarterback Desmond Ridder. That is my next point. And I really like what he showed against Notre Dame. But it's not just Desmond Ridder. I think this was one of the biggest wins in program history for the Cincinnati Bearcats. Luke Fickell has this program rolling right now. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This was the biggest win in program history for Cincinnati. They were previously 0-23 versus top 10 teams on the road, and going into a hostile environment in Notre Dame and getting the victory the way that they did. This is what we call a program booster, already being the number 7 team in the program, the number 7 team in the country, getting the big win over Notre Dame, who's the number 9 ranked team in the country. And I really liked what they showed in this game. They looked like they belonged, but also I thought they dominated the game in spurts too. And we kind of saw it last year against Georgia in the Peach Bowl, which was a game they definitely almost came very close to winning, which would have been a huge win for them. But they get their revenge and they end up going into Notre Dame and getting the victory, which is a huge win for the Cincinnati Bearcats, a team we could see even sneak into the college football playoff if they continue to win and take care of business down the stretch of the season. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Draft Network on YouTube, and stay tuned for more content throughout the college football season.
We're back on the Money Down presented by BetPrep, and we're getting ready for the BetPrep breakdown with Patrick Everson from props.com. Patrick Everson, we're so glad to have you on. Thank you so much for your time. Let's just jump right in. Georgia-Auburn, where are the books standing for this game?
Well, it's all public and it's all Georgia all the time. I have multiple books. I've talked to 2 or 3 different spots just this morning. But BetMGM opens Georgia 14.5. As we all know, Georgia just waxed Arkansas last week. Got up to 15 pretty early and stayed there all week. And Scott Shelton told me it's all Georgia. A lot of mid 5-figure bets that came in on the Bulldogs on Friday. So this seemed pretty good action. 3-1 tickets, 3-1 money on Georgia, and it's even more lopsided at other spots around the country. It makes sense. The public's going to be on this team. They're hot, and it looks certain like a nice Georgia-Alabama matchup coming up first week of December.
What about this rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas? Are there any trends for this matchup in the Big 12?
BetMGM Nevada again, and that's just what BetMGM is seeing up and down Las Vegas Boulevard at their books. This has been -3 all week. Hasn't moved off it. Some books were 3.5, went back to 3, a little back and forth. Scott said a ton of tickets on both teams. Late last night, there was literally only a 3-ticket difference, 3 more tickets, and that was on Texas. Money 2-1 in favor of Oklahoma. But this has been a game where, depending on the book and where you're at, it's probably been a little bit closer to 2-way, if not even a lean. There are a book or two that have seen more action on Texas on the short underdog here than on Oklahoma.
Patrick, let's transition back to another SEC matchup. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, by the way, Oklahoma doesn't have the best spread covering record in this rivalry in recent years. It's not their favorite game, not the bettor's favorite game for sure. If you're taking Oklahoma,
totally understand that, especially in a rivalry game. LSU Kentucky. When you look at this matchup, where's the money looking for this?
All right, hang on. I got to bounce around on this one. LSU Kentucky at BetMGM Nevada from 3.5 to 2.5. On Kentucky, and it's kind of interesting to see that, but that's where LSU is at this point. But Scott said ticket count favored Kentucky, a few more tickets. Money, however, 3-1 on LSU. People still kind of buying into the Tigers, at least at BetMGM Nevada. We'll see if that's the case if Kentucky takes care of business today. I think it could get a little interesting down in Baton Rouge.
How are things looking for Michigan, Nebraska? Where's the money tracking for that Big Ten game?
This is a really interesting game. At Caesar Sportsbooks, this game, the spread anyway, is the highest handle for point spread betting of any college football Week 6 game, which I thought was surprising when you look at having Penn State, Iowa, and Oklahoma, Texas, Georgia, Auburn. This game has taken a ton of money. Same can be said at BetMGM Nevada. Scott Shelton said this has gone 3.5 to 2.5. A ton of sharp play on Nebraska, brought that line down to 2.5 from 3.5. Nebraska's getting some sizable 5-figure plays. Michigan's got a decent sized 5-figure play here as well. Tickets 3-1 Michigan at BetMGM Nevada, up and down the boulevard. But money 1.5 to 1 in favor of Nebraska. And Scott just said this is a really popular game with us. Teasers, parlays, a ton of tickets. This game's got very high interest. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out later today.
Now we're going out west for our last and final matchup for the BetPrep breakdown. Utah, USC. What do you see for this game in the books, Patrick?
Right. This one opened 3 on USC, 3.5, then back to 3. And Scott Shelton, again, BetMGM Nevada said ticket count 2-1 in favor of USC, but money just over 2-1 in favor of Utah. And Scott also noted on the total in this game, he said late last night, it's probably changed a little bit this morning and maybe it'll evolve throughout the day, but he said literally all the money is on the over in this game. So bettors looking for a little bit of a higher scoring matchup tonight.
That's it for today's BetPrep breakdown with Patrick Everson. We come back from the break. We'll take a look at the leaderboard. We'll do our go for 2 picks and our bold bets.
Hey, college football fans, Jordan Reed here once again to talk about the MEAC and SWAC East and West Shrine Bowl Players of the Week from Week 5 of the college football season. And man, what a week it was. We had upsets all over the place, but we also had rivalry games throughout the HBCU landscape too. And that's where I want to begin. And we had the Battle of the Bay between the Hampton Pirates and then also the Norfolk State Spartans. And the player that I'm going to start with comes from the MEAC, and it's quarterback Jawan Carter from the Spartans. And man, he was outstanding in this game. He led the Spartans to a 47-44 win in overtime. They had 496 yards of total offense. Carter was responsible for 396 of those yards. He finished the game 17 of 31 for 294 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that wasn't it. He also added another 92 yards on the ground to go along with another 3 scores. Carter showed poise and leadership in this game, and that's exactly what Dawson Odoms was looking for from his quarterback in this game. The Spartans now have a 3-2 record, and they're flying high under first-year head coach Dawson Odoms, and this is a program to be on the lookout for, and Carter was the main culprit of that in this game, engineering the Spartans to the in-state victory over their rival. The next player that I'm going to go to in the SWAC is Lynn Damien Brooks, the running back from Prairie View A&M. And he was a player that actually originally started at Grambling as a wide receiver. So he's not foreign to these SWAC battles at all. Ended up helping the Panthers offense get a victory 27-17 over Arkansas Pine Bluff. And he was outstanding in this game, finished with 9 carries for 118 yards and also a touchdown. And he added another 26 receiving yards on 3 catches. But the play that stood out to me the most in this game was his 83-yard touchdown down the sideline, of where he was able to show off his speed and his explosiveness. And that's the type of dynamic ability he brings to head coach Eric Dooley's offense, who has this program really going right now with a 3-0 record in the SWAC. And this is a team that definitely is contention in the SWAC West. So the player that gets my SWAC player of the week this week is Lynn Damien Brooks. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Draft Network on YouTube, and stay tuned for more content throughout the college football season.
You're watching the Money Down presented by BetPrep. We're back, and let's take a look at the leaderboards. Kyle and Joe. Let's take a look at how you guys did so far.
Nah.
Too late. Joe,
I lost both my go for twos last week. Leave me alone.
Okay. Kyle, we're not judging you. Joe wasn't even here. He sent in virtual things. So, Joe, how do you think you stand when you look at this?
Obviously I'm elated. Did well, sat in the airport, made my picks, sent them in, crossed my fingers, and had my best week of the year. So see if I can parlay another good week together. Yeah, maybe so.
You might have to take another vacation to keep moving up a little bit. Kyle already said that he's putting in his vacation so that hopefully he can have this.
Yeah, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Well, Kyle, before you go on vacation, before you go on your vacation, let's hear your first go for 2 pick.
Well, I am going to throw Joe under the bus here a little bit. And Joe had a big hole to dig himself out of through the first month of the season. And the way he got there was a lot of doubling or tripling down on games. So I'm going to take a Joe Marino strategy here. And I am going to go for 2 on BYU -6 on top of the unit that I already had placed when we went through them the first time. So this is a 3-unit bet game for me. That's my confidence level of BYU -6, taking care of business. I think they get it done. I'm all the way in. My chips are all in the center of the table. This strategy has not worked well on the Money Down at all for anybody, but I don't think I've done it yet. Like Chris did it a couple of times. Joe's tried it a bunch. We're going to see how my luck goes with it. I'm taking all the way in on our Cougs.
All right. Joe, Kyle's testing the waters by going all in here on the Cougs. What are you doing for your first go for 2 pick?
I'm going to go with Wake Forest covering 5.5 on the road at Syracuse. This Demon Deacons team, they can play offense, averaging 38.4 points per game, 460 total yards per game. They play with tempo. They're balanced. They can run it and throw it. And this Demon Deacons team last year won this game 38-14, and I think they're a better football team today than they were last year. The same Florida State team that Wake beat 34-14 beat Syracuse last week. So I don't know how the Orange keeps up in this one. Give me the Deeks to cover.
I'm not surprised that Joe went with an ACC school for one of his go for 2 picks. I have heard the Deeks are, rolling things along. But Kyle, it's time for your second go for 2 pick here, and I'm wondering where you're going. Are you going to go all in like you did for the Cougs?
Well, I can tell you this. I'm not going to touch the Deeks because they broke my heart last week. I had them -6, and they gave up a 75-yard touchdown in the final 3 minutes of the game to get it tied, and then had to kick a field goal to win the game, so they didn't cover on one of my 2 unit bets against Louisville last week. So the Deeks are on the S list next to Spencer Rattler. I've had enough of them, so I'm not touching them. I am taking Michigan State in Piscataway against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights program. They are -4.5 points. Rutgers lost some momentum. They started the year 3-0 and gave Michigan fits in the second half, but the Wolverines bullied Rutgers in the first half of that game. Ohio State waltzed all over them last week. This is a revenge game for the Spartans. They lost to Rutgers last year, and this Michigan team looks completely different than last year's team. They've got a ferocious run game. Kenneth Walker is one of the nation's leaders in rushing. Key matchups in this game: Michigan State line yards, 17th. Rutgers defensive line yards, 72nd in the country. Michigan State finishing drive, 18th in the country. Rutgers defense, 94th in the country. Rutgers offensive explosive plays, they're 130th in the country. Michigan State, 24th. I like all those variables at play. I think Michigan State has better talent. They tackle better. They're rated higher in coverage. They play better. They're ranked better on special teams. Give me Michigan State -4.5 against Rutgers.
Wow, high praise for the Sparty. Joe Marino, last go for 2 pick today. What do you have?
I'm going to the Big 12, and when I go to the Big 12, I want to root for points, and that's exactly what I'm doing in the TCU versus Texas Tech game. I like TCU's team over of 30.5. The Frogs this year, they're averaging 35 points per game this season. How is a Texas Tech defense that surrendered 70 to Texas 2 weeks ago going to keep TCU 4 points under their season average? TCU has an experienced quarterback in Max Duggan. They're running the football very, very well with Zach Evans. Tay Barber is a very dynamic vertical threat. And TCU's offense has been aggressive all year. I think the Frogs score early and often, and they get over 30.5 points today.
Joe, I'm going to start with you for the bold bets because I started with Kyle for the go for 2. It's time to get bold. What is your bold bet for week 6?
Yeah, I like Virginia. Virginia, who are underdogs to go into Louisville and win. Give me the money line for Virginia. It's an evenly matched game. Both teams can score, and both teams struggle on defense. And I think the difference in this game can be the Virginia passing game. Brendan Armstrong and the Cavs offense, they're averaging 398 passing yards per game. And I think they can put a lot of stress on the Louisville secondary that surrendered 324 passing yards last week to Wake Forest. I think the Virginia passing offense is the difference in this one, and they go on the road and claim a dub over Louisville.
Joe, you're all in on the ACC today. It's very,
gotta stick
very,
with what I know.
interesting.
You know what I mean? So.
I believe you. Work smarter, not harder. Kyle, it's time for you to get bold here. Your bold take bet of week 6. What do you got?
Yeah, this is I'm the Big Ten guy, and I'm staying in the Big Ten. I got +200 on a defensive touchdown in the Penn State-Iowa game. And they got Iowa's defense, they score a lot. And they, as I said, 68 points off of turnovers. Riley Moss in the past calendar year, a cornerback for Iowa, has 3 pick sixes in the past calendar year. So I'm liking those odds with just how often and stout both of these defenses are. that somebody makes a mistake and they make it just a touch too far inside to the field instead on the boundary, and it gives a defender room to kind of come back and run one back for the other way going 6. So give me defensive touchdown, either team, Penn State, Iowa.
Well, they always say defense wins championships, so I'll be on the lookout for a potential pick 6 in that Big Ten showdown. That wraps up our Week 6 edition of the Money Down presented by BetPrep. Join us back here tomorrow for the NFL edition of the Money Down presented by BetPrep. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.